Hi, my name's Tim. I'm owner and winemaker at Trocchio Wines, and today I'm looking forward to having a chat with Anastasia from Australian Ubizblog. We'll be chatting about my journey and we'll be tasting some wine. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, I'm Anastasia from Australian Business Ubizblog. How's everyone's going? Today we're in Fantry Gully and we're interviewing Tim from Trocchio Wine. He's gonna talk about his journey, his experience, his passion, and stay tuned. It's gonna be so interesting. Hi Tim, how are you today?
I'm good, I'm really good. So glad you could come.
It's a bit of a chilly outside, but I'm happy that we're finally here. We've been trying to organize this for such a long time. So, look, the first question probably I have to you, and I've been thinking for some time. What was your passion and towards the Trachea wine? How did you develop that?
Oh, started a long time ago. Always been interested in wine. When I came to Australia, I was fascinated because coming from UK and Ireland, didn't have an opportunity to grow many grapes or that much exposure to winemaking. My wife's family, particularly her uncle, used to make his own wine. I used to tag along doing that. She also had some friends that were in the industry, and yeah, look, I was just really in love with the lifestyle. Uh, Asked them when a couple of winemakers were around, how do you get into the industry? And their advice was, just forget about it, don't do it. So I took that advice and then completely ignored it. And then I started to do a course through Holmesglen TAFE. And that sort of led me into an applied science degree with Charles Sturt University doing viticulture and winemaking. And from there, I started to get a bit of experience, Wedgetail Estate in the Yarra Valley, Mornington Peninsula with 10 minutes by tractor, and a few other places around. I was working in the industry for a while, but with a young family, it was pretty hard commuting to the peninsula from Ferntree Gully, so ended up leaving that. But my wife was saying, you don't have to give up your passion, you can still do it part-time. So even though it's not my full-time job, I'm very passionate about what I do, and yeah, just continue to make my own wine.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good to me. Like looks like a lot of experience in the industry. But what actually Trachea wine stands for?
Okay, so Trocchio wine, my wife's maiden name is Di Trocchio, and in the part of Italy that they come from, a Trocchio is a wine press. Now that's dialect. Other parts of Italy it's called a Torchio, but this
Trachea.
particular, so it's Trocchio.
Trachea.
So it's like of the Trocchio or of the wine press, in the same way as people would have been defined by their occupations. So baker, carpenter, that sort of thing. Um, the wine press that I use, not this one in the background, the one I use was made by her father and his friends. Never got to meet him, but I thought it would be a nice synergy if I somehow incorporated that into the name of the wines that I produce.
Awesome. Sounds good to me. Okay, Tim, now it's an opportunity to try one of your beautiful wines. I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to it. But before that, I found a very interesting quote on your website and I couldn't help myself but asking this. and tell everyone, because I think it's a fundamental. It's all about your business. It's all about you, and it's important to know for everyone. It is a winemaker job to handle the fruit as gently as possible as it turns into wine. Doing this requires minimal intervention in the wine making process to avoid the true story being lost in translation.
Okay.
This is the best. Can you just explain to us what did you mean by that when you pretty much sort of try to put this phrase into perspective and for your business?
Sure. Look, I don't think it's just me. I think it's a common belief that a lot of winemakers believe that they are the custodians of the grapes. And really, in essence, there's not a lot that needs to happen. If you put a bunch of grapes in a bucket and allow it to sit there for a while, the skins will eventually break. There's yeast on the skins. There's an enzyme in the skins that creates a catalyst, and that will actually turn into wine. So it's probably not the sort of wine that we like to drink, but this is where the winemaker comes in. But essentially, people say that good wines are made in the vineyard. From my perspective, I try to, as you've just described, adopt a philosophy of minimal intervention. So I don't use any pumps because they can be quite harsh on the wine. I'm lucky to have a little forklift, so all the transfer, everything is done through gravity feeding. I don't use enzymes, I don't use fining agents, I don't filter my wine. So it's all about that minimal intervention. So if you can avoid taking steps, then why not do that? Because that, to my mind, gives the true representation of what the grapes are going to produce or what they're capable of producing, and a real expression of terroir, which is a French term that encompasses so many things: topography, climate, the personal intervention from the grape growers, how they've looked after the grapes and so forth. So it's probably haven't done that any justice, but it's an all-encompassing thing about how the grapes are grown and why they are the way they are.
Awesome. So let's just talk about your wine a bit more, because I'm so excited, you can't even imagine. You've got these beautiful glasses here, obviously with Trocchio Wines on it. So I guess it's probably your legacy in a way, because they look absolutely stunning and gorgeous. But what type of wine do you actually supply? Can you tell us a bit more?
Okay, what I do is I normally get a small quantity of grapes each year. It started off just to make sure that it was manageable, so I could look after all those processes myself. So I'll get about a ton of grapes a year. Half of it will be red, half of it will be white. So from the red grapes, I'll make a red wine. I'll bleed off some of the juice. That's what the French call a Sauvignon method, which means bleeding, and I'll make a rosé from that. With the finished red wine, I'll also make a fortified wine, and that is, I use a recipe from my wife's hometown in Italy. It's called Ratafiya, and it involves soaking cherries in wine and fortifying with grappa and a few other little bits and pieces. So that's
delicious.
it is.
It's like delicious.
That's the red wines. In terms of the white, I normally buy 2 parcels because I like to make a sparkling wine. Probably 4 years ago, I experimented with a method champenois. Worked out really well, and every year I've made one since. So I get some Chardonnay grapes for that, and then each year I'll make a different white wine. So it could be Chardonnay. This year I've made a Sauvignon Blanc. Last year I made a Verdelho. So every year I've got the option to chop and change. So with a small quantity of grapes, I can actually get 5 products of 5 different wines.
That's awesome. Say, for example, if somebody comes to you and say, Tim, just can you give me the best wine out of your range? What is the best one you always go to, like must try? Like say they have no idea about Trocchio Wines, they're just calling you and say, I want to try some of your range. That's the first one you recommend. What it would be?
Look, it's such a hard question, Anastasia, because it is so subjective.
From the top of your hand, like straight away, the first instinct.
Yeah,
that's
look,
all I want to give.
I think I'd go for what's presenting best at the time in any given vintage. Now, in the past, quite often it's been the red. It's probably my favourite, but yeah, look, I can't go past the sparkling wine either, because that's really good. But in answer to your question, if you held me to just one, I would say the red each year has been it's been pretty good.
Okay, I guess it's time to try.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
very excited.
Okay, let's start off with the sparkling wine, but rather than open that bottle, why don't we disgorge a bottle of wine?
What's disgorging is?
Okay, so with method champenois, the difference between that and normal sparkling wine is that the secondary fermentation occurs inside the bottle. So I don't know if you can see, there's a plug of yeast there, so all this yeast dies.
Yep.
We then freeze the neck, and that plug of yeast needs to be taken out.
Oh wow.
When you open up the crown seal, the pressure inside will push the yeast out of the bottle, leaving the clear liquid. So let's give that a go outside.
That's fantastic. How old is this bottle?
2 years.
Wow.
2 years.
Still 2 years.
Yeah, exactly right.
Let's do that.
Okay, let's go.
I'm excited.
Okay, so now it's disgorged. We will try some of the clear wine.
Oh wow. Looks nice and crispy.
Okay.
Alright, talk me through this.
So, this is what we call a Blanc de Blanc, which is white of whites in French, and it's made entirely from the Chardonnay grape. So, as I mentioned before, it goes through secondary fermentation in the bottle. It's left on the lees or the dead yeast cells for a couple of years, and you've just seen us disgorge it, and this is it.
I'm trying now.
Yeah, that's holding up pretty well. Still light and fresh, and very refreshing.
Very refreshing, I would say so.
And you still get a lot of the primary fruit characters from that.
It's beautiful.
From there's a lot of lemon,
Really nice.
little bit of peach, but you still get, because it hasn't been on for too long, it hasn't been on the lees, you don't get those too much of the brioche and bready character. It's still there. It's a little bit of toast, but it just sort of underpins that fruit style.
It probably goes well with like a cheese platters as well, yeah. If you do
Absolutely.
soft
Look,
cheeses,
sparkling wine goes
beautifully with the blend.
Yeah, because it sort of cuts through. Cheese can be quite creamy and coat your mouth, so this is really great for cutting through that.
That's beautiful.
Other pairings for sparkling wine. People talk about having it with fried chicken or dumplings. So
dumplings,
anything where
that's
you need to sort of cut through that either fatty or gelatinous.
Oh wow, that's
food.
absolutely beautiful.
So I don't. I just add the same wine back in because I think it's got enough fruit on it. It doesn't need any sweetness added to it. A lot of people will add maybe a little bit of sweetness in the form of concentrated grape juice or something like that. I just keep it as dry as I can. That's my personal style,
and that's your philosophy as well comes along here.
Partly, yeah.
Because you believe in that natural process of the the grape
right.
as well. So it looks absolutely, and the taste is amazing. I probably would say it's a perfect addition to the party, the birthday party, anniversary, wedding, and stuff like that. So people probably would be able to grab a bottle and just enjoy, or just a date. You go out on a date, and it's just a perfect addition.
You're limited by your imagination.
Absolutely.
So this is the I've called that Teresa, which means little Teresa. So I named it after my wife, given that she was very patient.
And she's the inspiration as well.
She is the inspiration behind a lot of this, absolutely.
Behind Trocchio Wines.
Exactly. Well, Teresa di Trocchio. So that's it's her family name. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what's next for
Okay,
us?
so next is...
oh my god, I still can't get over this one.
let's try the Sauvignon Blanc. Got a bottle here.
Very classic.
It is a
and
classic
well-known
style.
Sauvignon Blanc.
It is. So I won't got too much. We've got a few on the lineup here. So the grapes for the Sauvignon Blanc came from the Mornington Peninsula, and they were organically grown. Now, even though I don't have organic certification, the only thing I've added is a cultured yeast to this, but the rest is all pretty natural. So no fining. Everything's allowed to settle. And with a lot of my wines, because I don't filter them, there may be a little bit of residue, which is pretty harmless, but I'd rather have that and have minimal intervention than treat it with all sorts of stuff to get it crystal clear. So
I can see how clear it is. It's amazing. It's like
but it's still pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, so you get a lot of cut grass, asparagus, a lot of lemon,
I can actually
lime,
feel it.
passion fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not as much passion fruit as a lot of the New Zealand wines. It's a bit more subtle and subdued, a little bit more like the French style. But yeah, look, pretty good Mornington Peninsula Sauv Blanc. But it's something that is characteristic of Sauv Blanc and probably really exaggerated, not exaggerated, but highlighted in this wine is the linear acidity with something like this. Very, very crisp and fresh. I tried a couple of times and we said it's fish and chip wine. For the fish and the batter and stuff like that.
The seafood maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
Some
So
sort of
anything that's enhanced by a pop of citrus, this would be
I'll try
ideal.
another one.
Mm.
It's very light, like it's not heavy. It's very simple, but there's some sort of a texture in there, as you described, passion fruit, and but it's very light compared to the first ones, the sparkling.
Yeah.
It's the sparkling is heavier. It's like a give you that bang moment. This one like a lighter kind of sort of easy to go. It's like a probably bottle on the run. Just a friend's house. Let's have a some drink.
And that's I love that you say that because it's a bottle on the run, going to your friends. That's what makes it really worthwhile for me, is people just enjoying it casually.
Absolutely.
Nothing stuffy. There's no sort of fine dining, but it can still hold up well to full-on meals that you're matching food and wine with.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, it's wine is all about enjoying with friends.
This is something.
Casual.
This is actually something I was going to say and ask you, but you just answered this question. That the wine actually brings people together. So the wine is not just a drink, and alcohol obviously as it is. It's actually a great addition to food, to amazing food, and it brings families together. It brings people together. In generally speaking, especially in Australia, I find that wine is like it's a wine culture. Yeah. We love the wine. Yeah. So yeah, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Look, I think it's the juxtaposition is France or Italy, where it's all about the food and the wine is there to enhance the food. I think sometimes in Australia it's wine first and then food later.
Yeah.
I don't believe it should be like that, but you're spot on. It's you share it. It's part of a communal table. It's friends, family. It's got a story to tell, and
Absolutely.
Look, you can get your alcohol hit in different ways. Wine is a bit more different. It's got a story to tell. It's constantly changing. Unlike a VB or a beer, which is you have it one year, it's going to be exactly the same as the next year and the next year and the next year. Whereas wine, year on year, will change depending on what happens in the vineyard and the wine changing itself over a period of
I
time.
think it's something to do with what you said, that the vintage is never the same. It's never the same bottle. It's a very interesting thing. Like if you have a vintage, it's going to be different to the previous vintage.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Because it's like wine is like a person in a way. If you have it's a different personality there. You can do exactly the same process. You can go through the same process, but the outcome could be vary.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
you take this year, for example, we're getting a lot of rain. It'll probably delay things a little. There's high disease pressure. The vines will produce something a little bit different to last year, which was pretty close to perfect ripening conditions.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
and that's the beauty of it. It has that ability to to show itself in the finished product. You know what actually happens during the course of a growing season.
How about the hardcore?
Okay.
There's some bit of a rosé.
Yeah. Well,
What's next for us?
a little in between.
Because I'm a fan of red wine, just in generally speaking. I call it hardcore.
Hardcore wine.
There's lighter wines. Sparkling is incredible, but when you go into reds, it's just more like the texture is just more rich. It's dense.
Yeah.
It's got that, personality, flavor.
Okay, so this is the
Rosé.
rosé that we've done this year, and it's from straight Grenache grapes. I mentioned earlier that I used the Sanier method of bleeding the juice off the red wine. When the juice is in contact with the skins on the red wine, then that's where you get the colour. So you'll see there's quite a nice onion skin light colour.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a couple of good complaints from friends and family, because I much prefer a drier style of rosé. And I did a rosé maybe 3 years ago from Shiraz, and there was a lot more sort of residual sugar and sweetness in it.
Mm-hmm.
They compare every rosé that I make to that one, and that was their preference. So just to keep friends and family happy, this is a little bit sweeter, but it finishes off nice.
It's just
and
a little
dry.
touch of like pink,
Yeah.
It's crystal clear, like it's not like white on the par of white and rosé. It's very
That's right.
clean texture.
Yeah. So it's the time on skins that will make that difference.
It's sweet.
Not overly sweet. You watch the finish on the back, and then it sort of dries out.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a
Yep.
a huge amount of texture to this. I mentioned earlier about minimal intervention. It's a characteristic of all my wines. You got a little bit more substance to the mouthfeel. A little bit richer in the mouth, more,
It's richer?
more filling.
But that sweetness in the beginning,
Mm.
like you get that, it's like a dessert wine
Yeah.
in a way. Well,
It's,
dessert is more sweeter but it's for sweet tooth.
Yeah,
For sweet tooth people,
but still finishes quite dry.
it's finish.
So
It is.
that
Like
that
here.
finish,
Mhm.
it's still quite dry, and you don't feel after you've swallowed it that you've had something sweet. To me, this is perfect for a lot of Asian cuisine,
Oh,
or something where you get a little bit of chili or spice, something with a bit of heat. That residual sweetness in the wine is perfect for that.
Awesome.
But
People
not like,
loves Asian food, and
absolutely,
this is
yeah.
the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful one.
So we're lucky in Melbourne that we've got so much variation
We do.
in cuisine. So it's just a question of matching the wine to it.
Absolutely. No, this is good.
Mm.
This is good.
So
Nice.
even though it normally people wouldn't classify it as hardcore, it's got a bit more depth than normal rosés or wine.
So
Okay,
it's
let's,
getting
I think I had one
deeper
here.
down to reds.
Yeah, so
That's for the.
why don't we try the this year's red? It's a GSM. I'll bring out the big guns.
Front. So those beautiful glasses.
Yeah.
It's stunning.
Okay.
It's probably even hard to find the glasses in this particular shape in the store right now, because most of the glasses they just have cliche shape, whereas this shape is actually perfect. It's like a bit of a obviously European style as well.
Yeah, I think it's a Italian
Yeah, it's
design, but
beautiful.
it's
just
crystal
gorgeous.
crystal glass. But
Yeah.
you'll notice with a lot of wine glasses, what you should have is a tulip shape. A lot of the smells from a wine they're released, so the volatiles are released, and the whole idea is to channel them up towards your nose when you're smelling.
All right, let's try.
This is really interesting. It's they call it a GSM or a Rhone style wine. So it's made up of Grenache, Shiraz, and Rouverge. So it's 60% Grenache, 30% Shiraz, and 10% Rouverge.
Beautiful.
But the
Shiraz is
first thing that will hit you is just an explosion of fruits, sort of red and dark fruits. Then
bit
you'll
bitter.
start,
It's a bitter at the start, and then splash that bang.
Yeah,
and
so
then
there's a
kind
lot of fruit.
spreads across.
It's like a sour cherry.
Yes.
Not dissimilar to what you get from a Sangiovese or something like that.
Beautiful. I think this is my favorite so far. What the type of wine would you recommend? What occasion do you think that would match perfectly to someone? If somebody calls you, say, Tim, I want a bottle of red, this is the one that you would recommend straight away?
It's the only one that I have, but
Exactly.
in terms of what they require, look, food and wine pairing it's if I know what the food is, then there are certain wines that would, pair really well with those foods, and that's when I go to a restaurant, I'll have a look at the menu, see what there is, and then I'll choose what I think will be the best accompaniment to that particular dish that I'm going to have.
Because as far as I know, red wine obviously goes well with beef and red meat and stuff like that. So, but I guess a lot of people still can have seafood and fish. It doesn't really matter. I think
absolutely
it depends on the taste and preferences and stuff.
Yeah,
like
look, I think you're spot on with that. The rule nowadays is that there are no rules. So whatever works for you.
That's it. I agree.
You mentioned fish. You could have fish with a rich tomato sauce, or it depends. It's not just the protein, whether it's fish or chicken or beef or pork or whatever. It's how it's cooked, what it's cooked with. So the sauce plays a big part.
This is my favorite.
So it's
well, for fans of red wine, this is probably the best one.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's not too heavy as well. Like some red wines, they're very peppery. They've got a lot of pepper, spice. Like they're perfect for winter.
Yeah.
But if you want a summer red wine, this is actually good because it's quite light, kinda. It's not heavy as well, but it's still red.
Yeah.
So it's.
Look, I'd classify that as a medium-bodied red wine, but it's a little bit deceptive because it's quite fruity. I think it's really well balanced in terms of acidity and tannin. The tannin is very silky and it slowly sort of creeps up on you. But this came from South Australia.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's about 15% in alcohol. So it's deceptively strong.
Okay.
So you just need to be a little bit careful, and whilst the body and the texture, the aromas, ideally suited to spring, summer, autumn wines as opposed to a really heavy winter wine, you wouldn't want to drink too many glasses of this at your barbecue, or especially if you've been out in the.
So basically, in other
all
words,
day.
like if the alcohol, like in particular wine, is light on your tongue, it doesn't mean that it's not alcoholic as such. It still have a high percentage alcohol, and people have to be aware of that as well.
Absolutely.
So if they're grabbing this bottle, they have to be like understanding that it's actually quite alcoholic.
Yeah, and look, just a rough guide. It's always on the label, so just check the alcohol content
that's true.
and match that with the occasion as well. Not just the food, but
That's
if you're going to be having something at lunchtime, maybe 1 or 2 glasses lets you.
What's your
lets you
favorite
nuts.
out of 3 so far?
Look, I love the way the GSM has turned out.
Mm.
As I said, with the rosé, it's not my preferred style, but I was catering to, it's mainly friends and family that have supported me on a tiny operation, and if that's what they want, that's what they get.
No, this is definitely a beautiful one.
Mm.
So what else do we have here?
Not tasting it at the moment because the quantities that we have are very, very minuscule. So I mentioned earlier on about the fortified wine. This is called Ratafiya, and it's the recipe for this is comes from my wife's hometown in Italy, where they make this. Now there are any number of variations on Ratafiya, but essentially it's made by soaking cherries, and a particular type of cherry, an Amarenic cherry, which is a small, bright, bitter cherry, in a base wine. So whatever red wine I've made that year, I'll use that as the base. I'll soak the cherries in it. It's done for, I don't question these things, it's done for 40 days and 40 nights, very biblical, but out in the sun in a little demijohn. After that, we'll strain it, fortify it with grappa, and there's a couple of other additions in there.
Is it sweet or?
Yeah,
like
it's like it's a fortified
beer?
wine, like port or similar type wine. Look, one of the characteristics of this, probably because of the cherries, is that it's and the other bits and pieces that I add, it's like Christmas in a bottle. It's you get those aromas, tastes, mince pies, that sort of Christmas spice, and
I know what you
a little
mean.
bit of vanilla and.
So how many of those
cinnamon.
do you currently have? Like a lot?
Well, this
like
year I've run right down. They're always hugely popular. I've had to restrict or limit availability to 1 bottle per person.
28.5%.
Yeah, and again, because it's fortified with grappa, you only need a tiny little bit. Bottle potentially would last you a year.
It's like a liquor or something.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
a sort of a spirits kind of
That's
sort of a level of alcohol in them. But obviously, do you believe that the smaller range means better experience sometimes?
Yeah, look, I think so. More and more people are buying from individuals as opposed to big corporations. They want the story behind the wine.
Of course.
They want to know the personalities. They don't want something that just comes off a conveyor belt. All my wines are every single aspect of the process. I'll bottle them myself, put the caps on myself, put the labels on myself. So every single wine has been sort of, touched by me, for want of a better description. And because I'm a one-man band, it's as I said, we spoke earlier about having small quantities. This is all manageable for one person, particularly as it's it's more of a passion project. It's not my main job, but clearly something that I'm very passionate about, and I've just needed to be able to manage all those aspects myself without relying on anybody else. So the way I've set this place up is, works well with that, conducive to that.
Yeah, that looks awesome. I really enjoyed all of those. Probably red is still my favorite, and the first sparkling is really amazing.
Yeah.
The white and rosé, very light and easy. It's like for casual occasions, just a seeing friend, just if you just seeing someone. But the red is probably one of the best wines I've tried today. So, do you plan to extend your range as well, or in future? What's next for you, like in terms of the developing more the wider range as well?
Probably not. I think one of the it's an advantage and a disadvantage not growing your own grapes. The advantage is that if I feel like making something, or if something is on trend, all I need to do is source the grapes from somebody that's reliable and has good quality fruit, and that gives me the ability to play around with different styles. I think when people follow me on Instagram. I say thanks for following me. Looking forward to sharing our story with you, and it's part of the my growth. It's just jump on board, come along for the experience as I, navigate my way through, all these different styles of wine, and I'm not constrained to making the same thing year in, year out. So I've got the ability to, to be a bit more broad in terms of how I cast my net for the different wines. So yeah, who knows? Any given year, it's going to be different. But in terms of the range, stick to this. I think I've probably maxed out. I think if you extend yourself or spread yourself too thin, that's when things start to fall over. This is all manageable for me at the moment, and it gives me the ability to control what I've got and ultimately the quality that I push out. And sometimes it won't work out. Last year, for example, I did a sensational Pinot Noir, really good fruit, 3 different clones of Pinot. I put it in barrel. It was just tracking so well. Put it in barrel. Went away on holiday. Came back from holiday and it's gone off.
Really?
So all my red for that year just down the drain.
So it's still test and trial
Oh,
sometimes.
it's still test and adjust as you go along. Absolutely. And that's what I mean by the journey.
What was the best feedback from your customer? What's something the best ever they said to you recently that you say, wow, I'm so proud that I've done this?
Just when people enjoy it. It's just the feedback when people have tasted my wines and just enjoy them. I'm not pitching myself right up there. I like to keep things accessible, and that's reflected in the price. I'm not out to make money. This is all about me doing my thing, and if people are sharing in that journey, it's my ability to share with them.
Yep.
Some of the wines that I make, and anybody that enjoys my wine or takes the time out to say, hey Tim, look, I had this, really enjoyed it. That's it for me. I'm not even saying that. If you see people around the table just getting into it.
But just a bit of a back to that, because you're saying like you still, because you're a business owner and obviously you position yourself as the smallest winery in Australia, and that's the cutest part, because I really enjoy that part. There's something unique about it, because a lot of wineries, but you are the smallest winery, but the smallest doesn't mean something wrong with it. I mean, it's unique in a way. Obviously it was tough for the last couple of years. On the top of the fact that a small winery, there's more challenges, which is COVID hit the ground the last 2 years. What was the major challenge for you as the business owner? What was it?
Yeah, look, there are a number of challenges. I've been particularly fortunate in terms of COVID, not having any real impacts. Sure, there's global supply chain issues that restrict the availability of certain materials that I need to get. Barrels, for example, is a real challenge. I need to get another barrel, but I've really been struggling in getting stuff imported over from France. I think some of the other challenges that you have along the way is just the sheer size of my little setup means that I don't have the ability to there are minimum order quantities that you need to satisfy, and sometimes I don't need that much. Classic example, we planned this chat in October, late October, and then there was an issue with the labels where I wasn't happy with what came back. They had to go back to the supplier to get redone, and I won't get prioritised because of the sheer volume of what I produce. However, if it was one of the very big clients, then they would be moving everything in their way to ensure that product was delivered to the customer on time. So little things like that.
So basically, in other words, the smaller businesses, they kind of not prioritized. Like the bigger businesses, bigger money, bigger profits comes first, and then the smaller businesses come second. So that's a very interesting point of the challenge that you had. But now it's getting better. So
it is.
Your clientele is growing.
Yeah, it is.
Slowly.
But it's again, it's something that I want to try and keep as small as possible. I only supply locally, don't supply overseas. So yeah, friends and family and people that have supported me along the way is where we're at.
So probably the last questions I have to you. What are your top 3 points of difference compared to other winemakers?
Okay. Firstly, I think it's sheer size. A very, very small operation. It's unique, pretty exclusive. I think secondly is maybe the philosophy that I bring to winemaking, all about minimal intervention. And then thirdly, I'd like to think that I'm fairly reasonably priced and accessible as far as the wines I'm producing. I like the idea of, you know, punching above my weight in terms of costs. So yeah, bang for buck, if if you want to use that expression. So yeah, I think maybe the 3 main ones.
Awesome. All right, Tim, where can people buy the wine from you? And how?
Best place, I think, is through the website. So www.trocchiowines.com.au.
Yep.
Alternatively, people can hit me up on social media, particularly Instagram. That's where I play around most. But yeah, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok.
Oh, you've got a TikTok.
So just
Fantastic.
we had to do it. We had to do it. Would have been
Why
rude
not?
not to.
Why not?
Why not? Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that little pun. Yeah, so that's probably the best place. So just direct message me through those means or the website.
That was an incredible chat today. Thank you so much for this interview. I had so much fun, and I'm sure a lot of people watching us today, they're gonna probably learn more about you and your journey as the business owner and winemaker, your passion as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for the opportunity to share the story with others. Hopefully your viewers will be able to get something out of this.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you.
Trocchio Wine and Australian Ubizblog.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.